Insider Jeff Marek reveals the Canucks' potential trade philosophy this season with the team's recent precedent, and one player in particular seeming to have the writing already on the wall to seal his trade fate. And Patrik Allvin makes even more roster shuffles with Abbotsford, implicating we could have some players returning for Thursday night's game against the Islanders. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. We're nearly at 5,500 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates this season. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Canucks trade philosophy and possibilities. So Jeff Marek was on Canucks Conversation today and was talking about just the Canucks in general, saying, I don't know that anyone is saying Stanley Cup about the Canucks, but people look at this team and see a really good group, one that needs help along the blue line, Thatcher Demko to perform, and a lot of things to go their way if they're going to make noise in the postseason. The Canucks are in that category where if they're healthy and get some breaks along the way, they could have a deep playoff run, much like last season. And he continued to give them a little bit more flowers, saying it's great to see Elias Pettersson starting to shake off his slump. If that continues and JT Miller can get past whatever he's going through and play like we know he can, and if Boeser returns sooner or later, they have players who could be contenders for major trophies. It's tough having everything clicking at once throughout a season is rare, but I don't think we are in a place enough emphasis on what it means to win the President's Trophy. Finishing on top after 82 games is a real accomplishment. He also went on to talk about Quinn Hughes and gave him his flowers, but as far as the President's Trophy is concerned, we don't want it. That thing is cursed. Stay away from it with a 10-foot pole. But he's not wrong on the things that the Canucks have going for him, and we're not entirely a championship team right off the bat, but we do have the pieces in place that if we get the ball rolling, we can have those things in place. But one thing that Marek did jump into that is really the golden nugget of the entire conversation was the trade philosophy for the Canucks, saying Jim Rutherford was one of the first GMs to make moves early, and it paid off. He's always followed that model. I don't see any reason for that to change now. Rutherford believes that when you know the price for a player you want, you make the deal as soon as possible. It's a model that's worked for him and brought him multiple Stanley Cup championships. In the past, the GM had full autonomy. Everything rested on their desk, but today the role is different. You often hear that GMs need to manage upwards. It's a critical skill now to work closely with both the team president and the owner. And this is something that we have seen time and time again with this Vancouver Canucks organization, where the GM and the team president with Allvin and Rutherford, they're working together in a tandem, and also including Tocchet, of course, in those conversations and making sure that it's not just Allvin making all these moves. Trader Jim is behind the scenes pulling the strings just as much as Patrik Allvin is. And that does bode well for some of the things that we've seen this season and just has shown, where we went out and got Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov last season. We went and traded Daniel Sprong after not even 20 games. And now it's potentially another thing where the Canucks could be looking to go onto the trade market. And one person in particular that could definitely be on that chopping block and likely will be is Nils Höglander, because last game in a season low ice time for Höglander at 9:23, all at even strength, 138-second shift in the final 12 minutes. This is coming from a guy who was a 20-plus goal scorer last season, and now we're seeing this massive dip from Höglander, where he's dropped down to now the fourth line in multiple games, back-to-back games. It is a repeating pattern and is something that we have seen very often with him this season after he has not performed up to snuff like he did last season. And history shows that when Tocchet doesn't believe in a player's game or trust him to be on the ice in big roles, the team starts shopping them around. It happened recently when it was announced that Daniel Sprong, who was also a 20-plus goal scorer, was shipped out of town after just 10 games with the Canucks for the exact reason. And he was brought in this past offseason, so a very short tenure with the Canucks. And don't forget that Andrei Kuzmenko found himself in the same spot last season and was on the more extreme side of things as he scored 39 goals with the Canucks, and it wasn't even 3/4 of the way through the season. And this is emphasized even further when on October 28th, after the Carolina game, Tocchet was talking about the Höglander PD Garland line, saying obviously when you change it, you don't like it, right? So I didn't like a couple of things there. Didn't like Hoagie on that at all. Listen, I'm not going to pick on that line. I just felt that I wanted to make a couple changes. So this was a night that, if you remember as a Canucks fan, this was a horrible game for the Canucks, and it just did not go our way. And that was definitely one of the weakest lines on the ice. And it might have contributed to some of PD's early struggles, where we thought initially that Höglander would be the one to get PD going. We thought he was going to be the one to kind of break him out of his slump, especially with Connor Garland being so fast and that being really just a speed line that has a lot of finesse to it. That unfortunately wasn't the case, and Höglander got bumped down. Petey got moved to some new line mates, and now we are seeing a lot more production out of Pettersson as a result. He's had a nice little hot streak cooking now, and it seems like he is a little bit getting back on track. There's still some things he has to clean up, but with being on this new line that he's on, he is playing a lot better. Höglander just dropped down to that final line, and it really has just been an abyss for him as he is recording low time on ice times and not getting any time experience on the power play or in the final 12 minutes or in the last minutes of games, period. What do you guys think about Nils Höglander? Do you think he is on the trade block? I definitely think he is. I think it would match with what Tocchet has done in the past as far as moving players and then they're just shipped out of here. And I think that is going to be the case with Nils Höglander. Maybe we get some draft picks or we go out and get a blue liner. We're going to be probably making down a video of potential candidates that we could trade Höglander for to help improve that blue line. Make sure that Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers have some reinforcements, and then we can have a Boeser down third line with Erik Brannstrom, who I would love to see hop on that second line. If you saw my last video, I think he would be great in a second pairing. But again, if you can't do that, you go and get a third line mate for him, or just do something with this Soucy and Myers pairing where you go and get somebody that you can pair with Soucy or Myers and move one of those guys down into the third pairing. But what do you guys think down in the comments? What would you trade for Nils Höglander? What defenseman would you bring in a trade for him? We'd love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is more roster implications. And this was brought on by the announcement today that Patrik Allvin announced that Arshdeep Bains, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, and Aatu Räty have been assigned to Abbotsford. This is likely just for meeting the daily salary cap limitations. And because some players are coming back from injury, we're probably going to see one or two of these guys get called up before the game against the Islanders, probably Lekkerimäki, because when you look at Lekkerimäki's stats for last game as well, for 5-on-5, he outshot opponents 9-4 when on the ice, outchanced opponents 5-2. He had a 60% Corsi rating, 1.06 XGF, which is the third highest on Vancouver. He had 0 points but 2 shots on net, 14:07 minutes of ice time. Strong debut from the rookie despite not finding the score sheet. And I definitely agree. Mark and I were texting during the game. He was hyped about his boy, and another person who had high praise for Lekkerimäki as well was Rick Tocchet, saying there's definitely a lot there to like. He's a smart player when he has the puck. There's not a lot of panic. He's just going to get better, and there's a lot of stuff to build off of. And yes, there's definitely a lot to build off of here. So I definitely think that Lekkerimäki is going to be back in the lineup against the Islanders. I think this was just a formality to meet the daily salary cap requirements. So we're probably going to see Dakota Joshua come back. Probably not Brock Boeser, because in the little update that Tocchet had, there's really nothing to report. You hope he's gaining 3 to 4% every day. That's why you have to look at these things. So I don't think Lekkerimäki being moved down is indicating that Boeser is coming back. If anything, I think it's just the daily salary cap thing, like I said. But in the case of Bains, I think that is the case where, or Räty even, I think that's a case where Dakota Joshua is coming back. He's going to be ready for this game, and we're finally going to see him make his season debut. But what do you guys think down below? What do you guys think was the reason for this AHL move? Do you think we see Lekkerimäki back in the lineup for the Thursday game against the Islanders? Love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments, but that's going to take us into our final topic of the day, which is comment of the day. And Wave640 posted on our last video that Petey still looks like he's lost a whole step, still hesitating to shoot the puck even with recent points. I definitely agree here. If you watched our last video, I was saying how even on the power play or in front, there were some opportunities where he could have been passing the puck a little bit quicker, or he could have just shot that thing and not even gave it a second thought, like we saw him do in the past with the old young Petey, where yes, he was a little naive and was a little bit risky, but he was still at least taking that chance and firing at the net. You can't score if you don't shoot at the net. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if Petey's not taking those shots, if he's just waiting to just set up a pass for somebody else, you appreciate a selfless player, but you also kind of want him to be a little selfish at times, especially when he's a superstar like Pettersson. But what do you guys think down below about Pettersson's recent little hot streak? Do you think that he's going to continue it, or are the wheels going to fall off again at some point? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. Always appreciate the love and support you guys have to give. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. Make sure to stay tuned for a video dropping tomorrow about the post game or even a game before that. Stay tuned for that. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates. But I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.